Hi, Mystery Writers. I'm Zara Altair. Welcome to the Mystery Writers Studio. Today I'm going to talk about the inciting incident and give you some pointers, especially for new writers, about what it is and where it goes in your story. But first, I have an important announcement. Um, November is going to be the last month of this series. They're going to live online, but on YouTube, so they'll always be accessible. But I am going to stop broadcasting them and spend more time working on spending my writing time, I guess, working on my stories. And just so I won't be so divided. So um, I really enjoy your company and all the comments, and I want to thank you for that. So I just want to let you know. So, what the heck is the inciting incident in a story? It's it's the event that pushes your protagonist out of that everyday world that we've seen at the beginning and eventually forces them to make a choice, which is going to come a little bit later. It turns their world upside down. Everything that's been happening in that normal world is all pushed aside. So, because the inciting incident uh, pushes your detective to a new decision, and it sets them on the story journey. First, we learn about them in their world, and then we start on the actual mystery puzzle solving journey of our mystery. And then I've seen some interesting things about inciting incidents. So I wanted to let you know first, it is not the first thing that happens in this story. It's the second. It's not the hook. It's not the hook. It's not the thing that brings the reader into your detective's world and gets them to meet the story. Or for some people, there's a prologue where the crime happens. Um, those are hooks. But the inciting incident is when your detective transitions from whatever they're doing at the beginning of your story, which introduces your reader to the world, to actually setting on the path of solving the current mystery that is going to be the big puzzle of your mystery story. All right. Your detective is the one who's going to lead your readers through this story and get them to care about your story. But just once again, first they need to know about your detective. So the very first part of your story is your detective in their everyday world. And that can be they're out solving a crime, they be bringing another solution to a conclusion. It could be what they do in their everyday life, but the inciting incident is the thing that pushes them into our story, as it were. um, if you follow Scott Myers, as I do in his series, go into the story, the terminology can be confusing, but he writes about screenwriting, remember? He calls the inciting incident the hook. So that's one of the instances where it can be a little confusing as to what is the inciting incident. But what he means is that it's the thing that hooks the hero into the main story. That's the thing that you need to know, what the inciting incident is, whatever somebody calls it. It's the thing that gets them going into the story. And it launches the main action of the story. So after you show your protagonists functioning in their everyday world, meeting a minor challenge that displays a skill, for instance, a skill they'll use to solve the mystery puzzle, it's really time to start the story. All right, I think I've talked about this before, where the story didn't start till what chapter? It was pretty far into the story. All right, so The inciting incident is just that. It's an event that incites the main character to take action. And for us, our main character is our detective, whether they're an amateur sleuth or a law enforcement officer, all right? And your reader sees the challenge and wonders if your character is um, up to the action. And part of creating that wonder is introducing the character in the first part. Okay, we've met them, we've seen maybe one way that they respond to conflict, because you've got some kind of action right at the beginning. But the inciting incident launches the story in the main action and takes us out of that, what the detective was doing before. It doesn't matter if they were chasing down a robber or baking cupcakes. It doesn't matter. It's now, here's the thing, and it's going to differ for every story. Here's the thing that's going to push them into solving this new mystery. So anyway, you get the idea. It's the thing that pushes them into them. Now, and your reader's going to feel, okay, here we go. Now we're getting into the story. This is the mystery, all right? So, a couple of tips about writing your inciting incident. As you plan your story, think of the inciting incident as the disruptor, all right? And whatever is happening in your hero's world, hero or heroine's world, the inciting incident disturbs the status quo. It's a thing that's like, whoops, all of this stuff that's the regular, this is a new thing, all right? So you want to make sure that when you're planning your inciting incident, you have some main elements. One, it happens early in the story. And two, it interrupts your hero's life as your reader knows it. And three, it's out of the character's control. 4, it requires an urgent response. They can't think about it for half of the story. All right, they've got to make a response right now. And it creates questions for the reader. And that first question, are they going to be up to the task, is going to be from the way that you've introduced your character at the very beginning. So let's take a look at happens early. Once you've introduced your hero and the world, it's time to get to the story. And there's no hard and fast rule, but the inciting incident usually happens about 30 pages into the story. And you're leading the reader from the world that was into the world that will be for the rest of the story, all right? It interrupts life. All right, so we've met things as usual at the beginning of the story, and now the inciting incident interrupts that status quo, and whatever your detective was doing in their regular life, the new crime calls them to something different. And it's not the kind of case they usually handle, or they went on vacation to take a break from solving crime, or they have another wedding that requires new ways of thinking. Whatever it is, all of a sudden it interrupts life, all right? And it's also out of the character's control. Usually the inciting incident is one of the few times when your protagonist does not take action on their own. In other words, okay, this has to happen. It just has to happen. It's not a thing that they ponder. It's the how can I say this? The inciting incident pushes them into the story. And there's an urgent response. So for some genres, urgency can be a challenge for your writer, but not mystery writers, all right? Your detective needs to get to the crime scene, interview suspects, and consult with the forensics team, and the person who requested the help will put pressure on them to get the crime solved as quickly as possible. So, for instance, in law enforcement, it may be their lieutenant, um, and in a cozy mystery, it could be the friend who really needs the help to find out what happened to their brother, for instance. All right. And one of the major things it does is it creates questions. It creates questions in the reader's mind, and all these questions are going to be answered as the story goes along. So the inciting incident does a lot of things for your story because it really disrupts everything the reader has thought so far. So essentially, what you're doing in the inciting incident is presenting the story problem. The goal of the inciting incident is really to put that problem front and center. This is the thing that we've got to deal with, and we've got to deal with it right now. And it's going to take the rest of the story to deal with it. All right. It's kind of how you have to think of it. Um, an outside force says, "Here, deal with this." That's kind of how it is. And the inciting event job is to bridge that opening scene and then the core conflict of the story. So your protagonist may challenge the inciting incident's call. It's like, no, I don't want to do this. But first, you need to start this story by presenting the problem. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps clarify, because it is, as I mentioned earlier, the terminology can be confusing. Hook is the first thing that pushes the reader. In my world, the hook is the first thing that pushes the reader and grabs their attention, that thing that happens on the first page. All right. The inciting incident comes a little later, after the reader knows enough about the detective to wonder if they're going to be able to solve this mystery. All right, thanks so much for being here, and thank you to all my subscribers. I want to thank you so much, and I will be here next week, and we're going to continue these through the end of November, and then Mystery Writer Studio will not continue, but all the past episodes, and all the past episodes will be up on YouTube. All right, thank you very much.